Hello, friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Here, I share a brand new story every day. If you enjoy my videos, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's dive into today's story. Meera Patel had been in a coma for over a month when the doctors finally declared her dead. Her family was devastated by the loss, and on a misty autumn morning, they gathered in a serene cemetery just outside a bustling Indian city to say their final goodbyes. The cemetery was a quiet place, bordered by ancient trees whose gnarled branches whispered with the wind. As the priest recited the final prayers, Meera's husband Arun stood by the grave, clutching a garland of marigolds in trembling hands. "May she always rest in peace," he whispered, placing the garland on the coffin before it was lowered into the earth. But peace was not what Meera found. That night, as a heavy fog settled over the city, a man dressed in dark clothes slipped into the cemetery. He was well prepared, carrying a shovel, a flashlight, and a small leather pouch filled with tools. This was not his first time disturbing the dead. His name was Ravi, a notorious grave robber who had grown bold with each successful heist. The recent burials were always his targets, and Meera's funeral that morning had not gone unnoticed. Ravi had heard rumors about the wealthy Patel family and the valuable jewelry Meera had been buried with. The emerald ring, in particular, had caught his attention, a family heirloom said to be worth a fortune. He found the fresh grave easily and began digging. The earth was still loose, making his work quick. As he dug, the only sound was the rhythmic scrape of the shovel and the occasional rustle of leaves. Finally, Ravi reached the coffin. He paused, wiping sweat from his brow, and then pried it open with a crowbar. Inside, Meera lay as though asleep, her hands gently folded over her chest. As expected, the rings glinted in the dim light of the flashlight. One a diamond wedding ring, the other a large emerald set in gold. Ravi knelt beside the coffin and tried to slide the rings off, but they wouldn't budge. The cold had stiffened Meera's fingers, making it impossible to remove them. Frustrated, he pulled out a small knife from his pouch, intending to cut the rings free. But as he positioned the blade, something unexpected happened. Meera's fingers twitched. Startled, Ravi froze. He told himself it was just a muscle reflex, something common in the recently deceased. But then it happened again. This time, Meera's whole hand seemed to move. Panic set in, but greed outweighed his fear. He needed those rings. Ignoring his rising terror, he pressed the knife against Meera's finger. Suddenly, Meera's eyes snapped open. Ravi gasped and stumbled backward, dropping the knife into the coffin. Meera's chest heaved as she took a deep, rattling breath. Her eyes, wide with confusion and fear, stared directly at Ravi. Before he could react, she sat up, her movements slow and jerky, like a puppet being pulled by unseen strings. In his panic, Ravi knocked over the flashlight, and the cemetery was plunged into darkness. His heart pounded in his chest as he heard the sound of fabric rustling. Meera was moving inside the coffin. With trembling hands, Ravi fumbled for his flashlight, but in the thick darkness, it was impossible to find. Suddenly, Meera's voice broke the silence. "Who are you?" she asked, her tone soft but filled with a strange, otherworldly quality. Ravi's breath caught in his throat. The reality of the situation became too much to bear. In his terror, he scrambled to his feet, abandoning his tools, and ran as fast as he could. But in his frantic state, Ravi lost all sense of direction. He dashed between the gravestones, his mind clouded with fear, and he found himself running deeper into the cemetery instead of out of it. He could still hear Meera behind him, her footsteps slow but deliberate, as though she was calmly following him. Desperate, Ravi made a sharp turn, hoping to find the gate, but instead he tripped over a loose stone and fell hard into an open grave. He landed with a thud. The wind knocked out of him and lay there, dazed and disoriented. The grave was deep, the walls steep and slick with moisture, and as he tried to climb out, his feet slipped on the muddy earth. Above him, the fog swirled and parted as Meera appeared at the edge of the grave, peering down at him. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, and her shroud billowed around her like ghostly wings. Ravi's terror turned to desperation. "Please," he begged, "let me go." But Meera said nothing. She simply stared at him, her expression unreadable. In his frantic struggle, Ravi dislodged a loose stone from the grave wall, sending it tumbling down. It struck him on the head, knocking him unconscious. When he awoke, it was morning. The fog had lifted, and the cemetery was bathed in the soft light of dawn. Ravi found himself lying at the bottom of the grave, the stone that had knocked him out beside him. There was no sign of Mira, but the open coffin nearby was empty. Weak and disoriented, Ravi managed to pull himself out of the grave. His body ached, and his mind was a whirlwind of confusion. The tools he had brought were scattered around the grave, forgotten in his terror. He limped out of the cemetery, vowing never to return. As for Mira, she was found wandering the streets later that day, still dressed in her burial shroud. She had no memory of what had happened in the grave or how she had come to be alive again. All she knew was that she wanted to go home. The grave robber Ravi was never seen again. Some say he fled the city, too frightened to face the consequences of his actions. Others believe that the cemetery claimed him that night, swallowing him whole in its shadowy embrace. But one thing was certain: Mira's rings remained on her fingers, a symbol of her strange and miraculous return to life. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share the video. See you next time.